Welcome back to another video. Earnings season is here. It's heating up this week, and next week it is a crazy week for earnings. So, markets at all-time highs. Earnings season is here. Not a better time to be in the market. So, there's two things we're going to cover in this video. One, we're going to talk about earnings season and kind of just projections on that and where we're kind of gonna go depending on earnings. And then two, we're going to talk about Nike stock, and I'm going to show you my position down pretty bad on it. And then I'll kind of go over whether or not I'm buying, holding, or selling that position. But before we get into it, all I ask is to like the video. That's it. So with that being said, where we're at in the market, we already know. Spoke on this last week, but we basically recovered, and yeah, we're at all-time highs, and that kind of happened very, very quickly. There's a lot of deals. There were a lot of deals out there. I still believe that there are some deals um, that are out there. I mean, bank stocks, I think, still look pretty strong right now. Bank of America starting to recover. You look at even SoFi, you can throw them in the mix. SoFi is looking really good. Microsoft still, I mean, it's a buy. Microsoft is a buy. Microsoft is a buy. Microsoft is, man, I mean, to think that this company is still down, we're talking 25% from all-time highs is crazy, right? I want to talk about one though. And I mean Marvell or Broadcom. We'll talk about Broadcom because Broadcom is just a stronger company right now. Broadcom, I mean, is flying, absolutely flying. So Broadcom is interesting. If you bought Broadcom back at the tariff dip, right? You're up a nice 180, 83%, right? So congrats if you bought that during the tariff dip. And even such, like Broadcom is a monster company, and why? It's because of their custom chips that they make, right? And they don't actually build them, right? They go to TSMC for TSMC to actually manufacture them at scale, but they design kind of like Nvidia. They're the Nvidia of the custom silicon chips. And that's what makes and puts Broadcom in such a strong position because now where Broadcom is at right now is they're in such a good position because you have the whole GPUs that Nvidia made, AMD, they make these GPUs and they cost a lot of money and they're very powerful, they're the top of the top, and they're very good for training AI. But what companies are starting to realize is that you can inference, right? So it's actually running the models. So if you ask ChatGPT something, right, and it spits out an answer, that's inference. That people are starting to realize that you don't need these high-end GPUs to do those type of things. And custom silicon chips are much cheaper than those high-end chips. And when you look at Google, for example, Broadcom's been supplying Google their TPUs since 2018. Google's been running Google Search, Google Gemini off of these custom chips for years now, and they've proven that it works and it's more cost efficient for them, right? They don't have to go and spend all of this money. And even though they are spending a lot of money, right? Like these companies are spending so much money, now it comes to the point where, yeah, they're still spending money like drunken sailors, but they have to be more strategic with how they're just spending their money, right? Especially with investors, they're getting nervous about this capex that these companies are putting out. So if they can save 5 billion, 10 billion here, 20 billion there, they're going to do that, right? So keep that in mind. But that is why Broadcom is really just becoming this monster company. I spoke about them last year before they were even in the $1 trillion market club, and just kind of touched up on why I think they're gonna join that club. It was one of my short form videos, but yeah, I mean I would not be surprised if this company turns into a $3 trillion market cap just because of where they're going from here. They're in a great position, and they're free cash flow, right? So the thing with them is they don't have to go out and build these data center sites. They just bring in orders from these hyperscalers, go to TSMC, and then sell them right back. So they don't have to worry about any overhead in terms of data centers and building all those things out. They're expected to hit 100 and like 15, 20 billion in free cash flow by 2030. That kind of gives you everything that you need to know. But Broadcom, solid company, very solid company, and if you bought Broadcom down below 300, 200, then congrats to you, because monster company. All right, so earnings season is here. So this week it's heating up. We started last week with the banks. This week, after the close, it's actually Monday, not Tuesday. So tomorrow we have General Electric, 3M, Interactive Brokers, United Airlines. Wednesday is when we really start to heat up with some companies. We have Boeing, AT&T, Moody's, Philip Morris, Tesla after the close, IBM, Texas Instruments. And then Thursday, we have Intel. And then next week. All right, so this is the week that everybody's waiting for. It like massive amounts of companies that are reporting. So I'm pretty sure Amazon usually doesn't report on the same days. I could be wrong. I feel like there's more companies that are reporting on the same week out of the bigger companies than normal. I'd have to check, but I could have sworn like Amazon usually, or Apple, it's one of them that they usually like all don't report on the same week. I could be wrong, but it just seems like there's a lot more companies that are reporting this week in 2 weeks than normal. But I mean, you could say everybody. This is everybody. Spotify, UPS, SoFi, Lemonade, Avi, Etsy, hyperscalers, Reddit, Rivian, Zeta. I mean, there's a decent amount of companies in here that is pretty much majority of my portfolio, I would say. Microsoft, I have a small position of Zeta. It doesn't really mean much. I own a little bit of Hood. SoFi, I have those leap calls. But yeah. And then Eli Lilly as well is going to be pretty interesting to look at with the GLP-1 and seeing how the GLP-1 race is going. But this is the big week, and this is probably what the market is waiting for to make that move higher or lower. Obviously, there's some geopolitical things that can happen that can move the markets a little bit, but I think the market is past that, and that's why we skyrocketed to all-time highs. And this is the week. This is the week that everyone's waiting for from the hyperscalers. We want to see how they're doing. We want to see how their margins are. We want to see how the money that they're spending, how is that returning to them, right? Are they seeing that return? So that is what everyone's waiting for. And this is probably going to be that determining factor that brings us higher or lower in the market. So pay attention to this week, because this is a massive week. I can't even wait. This is why we love the markets, because of weeks like this. So it's going to be a really good time. But with that, I saw this article that came out from Goldman Sachs. So I don't have the article right here, but I kind of summed it up on X, that kind of just basically just summarized what the article was about. So they talked about the premiums in the tech sector, and tech right now is trading at 2018 levels. 2018 levels. We're going almost 10 years back for tech. And I saw that and I was like, there's just no way. So here's a little picture right here. But it's a premium discount on a 12-month PE ratio. And you can see that the tech sector is literally, I mean, it from 2021 just tanked. So that this is just I think this was from A16Z, but it was kind of just help visualize like what it looked like. But consumer staples, industrials, and big box retailers are more expensive than tech right now. Staples, industrials, and big box retailers are more expensive than tech right now. Like when I read that, I was like, this is like insane. Tech has record free cash flows, growing record revenue, record net income. One of well, not one of, probably the most revolutionary time in our lives is happening with AI. These hyperscalers know that they're spending this money because it is a real thing, and it is going to help them grow over the next decade, probably even longer. And we have staples and big box retailers, small margin businesses. Retailers are small margin businesses but they're trading at a higher premium than tech. It doesn't even like make sense. When I saw that, it was crazy. Now, here was also interesting. Tech earnings are growing with revisions higher than any other sector. So they're expected to continue to grow their earnings over the next 12 to 24 months. But the premium that investors are willing to pay are going down. It doesn't make sense. And also there was something else in here that the only sector that was actually revising their earnings higher was the energy sector, and that was it. But tech is literally like they're expected to grow their earnings dramatically over the next 3 to 5 years, dramatically. And I just thought that was crazy. So pay attention to the hyperscalers, because I would not be surprised if you start to see Amazon at $300 over the next 6 to 12 months. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Microsoft right back at all-time highs around that 525, 550. Meta, I wouldn't be surprised if you see them go to all Google. I mean, it's ridiculous that it even got to this, right? Apple, wouldn't be surprised if Apple, you start seeing them back at all-time highs. Like, it's ridiculous. I saw that and I was like, wow. Absolutely insane. Insane. But pay attention. Huge, huge week that week. All right, so Nike stock. We're gonna get into Nike stock really, really quickly. I'm gonna show you my position right here, really, really quick. So this is it right here. This is my Nike position. I'm down 4,800 bucks, down 34%. Average cost is $70. I'm at 199 shares. So I've been holding this stock for. So I first bought this stock in 2024, very small position. The average was like 89 bucks, super, super small. And I really didn't start building this position until 2025. I think like midway of 2025. Well, actually, it was during the tariff dip. I added some on the tariff dip, and then through midway of 2025. And you can see I brought it from like $89 down to 70. So I realistically, technically I've been holding it for 2 years now. But realistically, like heavier position like this, it's really been like a year, um, a little bit over a year. But what I'm doing with it, I'm not doing anything. I'm not selling it. I'm not buying anymore. I've basically capped it like where I want this position at. And that's kind of like where I'm going, right? Yeah, I'm down a little bit. I have to be patient with it though. I really haven't been holding it for as long. I think I just mistimed this, to be honest. I just got in, obviously I got in too early. I say that now because the price is where it's at, but I really I didn't think that the turnaround would have taken this long. And I think that's something that I've learned from Nike. What I learned was it's a retail business, right? And it's a very slow business. Retail moves very, very slow. And as they were decreasing their revenue and taking that hit, right? And I felt like, wow, well, they got a CEO coming in and they can turn it around over the next 8 to 10 months, like even 8 to 12 months. Like, it just doesn't work like that, right? Retail is a very slow moving business. It takes a lot of time to clear out inventory, bring new inventory in. And I think that's really what I learned is, right. I could have sat on it a little bit longer and not added so much to the position, because retail moves slow. I mean, it could take 2, 3 years until they really start to see that big turnaround, especially with a company at this type of scale. Lots of inventory. It could take long, but that's kind of like what I've learned from it. But I'm not doing anything with it. Nike will be fine. I mean, if you're getting it in the low mid 40s, that's a steal, in my opinion. So why Nike is really is where it's at today. Nike is and it holds such a high premium still, even after we look at this huge sell-off, right? The forward PE is still 28, which is higher amongst all of the retailers, right? And that's because of the brand. It's going to always have a premium because of the Nike brand. The Nike brand is one of the biggest, largest brands ever, with Apple, with McDonald's. It's up there. It's a worldwide brand that everybody knows. And that's also why it has such a downfall, and why retail doesn't like Nike, because when you're at the top, right? I mean, it's like sports when you look at LeBron or Jordan, right? Like everybody talks about you. You're at the top. They're hoping on your downfall. Like that's kind of like what kind of like Nike falls in is as soon as they started to kind of decelerate, it got a lot of hate. People were like, "Oh, I told you, this company is taking over, their market share, and they're done. They're dead money." We're gonna just show the numbers with other companies, but here's the thing with Nike. Now, they had a CEO that brought them down the wrong path. So it backfired on them. You can't punish a company completely just because they had a CEO that tried something and it backfired on them, right? Because logically, when the CEO said, hey, especially during COVID, we're going to basically go direct to consumer, which will increase our margins, right? Logically, I mean, you would think like, okay, it doesn't sound like a bad idea. I don't think a lot of people would have known that it would have turned out like this. Obviously, now it's happened. So everyone's like, oh, I told you, oh, this was such a bad idea. But at the time, there was people probably saying, wow, this is a great idea. But, anyways, people don't understand Nike is not, it's not, this sell off is not solely just Nike. Right? When we look at Lululemon, consumer discretionary, retailers, clothing brands, apparel, they're all getting hit. You look at Lululemon, I'm not a fan of Lululemon, but again, you look at their stock price, it has taken a dump, a huge dump. Let's look at the two brands that everyone says Nike is basically going to go out of business or lose crazy market share. Okay, so On Holdings. Okay, so On Holdings, $64, it's down 44%. Wow, 44%. No, it's Nike. A little bit more dramatic for sure. But Decker, this is the maker of Hoka. Okay, they're down 50%. So you don't see anybody talking about these two companies. Stock prices down 45 to 50% on the two companies that apparently are taking Nike's business and basically taking Nike's lunch, but nobody's talking about it. They're only going to talk about Nike. Now, obviously, Nike's more dramatic, down like 75%, which is crazy. Lululemon, look at Under Armour, comparable business. I mean, exact business, right? 73%, right? There's a bunch of companies in the same exact industry that are down just like Nike. It's the industry. Now, not the entire consumer discretionary. And then when you go to the industry apparel and clothing, shoe market, not every single stock is down. I think American Eagle, I think they're actually up right now. Well, from the bottom, but let's just go to all-time highs. I mean, they're still down 50% from all-time highs. So it's not just Nike. So you have to understand that it's kind of just a sector slash industry problem. So really quick, I just want to kind of just show you guys this the scale of Nike. At the end of the day, Nike, nobody's touching Nike. Nobody. They are the behemoth of the footwear industry, and it's not even close. I don't care who you ask, who wants to say, whether this company is going to take over Nike. It's not going to happen. Nike is the behemoth in the footwear industry. You do not want to compete with Nike. They've been around for decades. And you have all these companies that have came over time over the last 2 decades. And how many of them have actually lasted and how many of them have been able to overtake Nike? Zero. Not a single person has been able to overtake Nike as the largest share in the footwear business. They're the behemoth. And here's the thing, you're going to have companies, especially apparel and like the whole footwear industry. It's a very competitive business, very competitive. So you're going to have companies that are going to come in and try to compete. They're going to compete, but can they last 5? Can they last 10? Can they last 15 years in these industries? No, they can't, right? You're going to see this On brand. You're going to see this Decker brand. You're going to see the scale that they are compared to Nike. And you're going to probably think like, maybe you didn't know, maybe you did, but to think that people are comparing these brands, it's just, it's comical. It's comical, honestly. It really is. So real quick, I want to show you this. So footwear revenue for Nike is almost $30 billion. It was 32 billion back in 24. I think it was like 35 billion at one point. 33 billion. So it was up there, and it's been decreasing, but it's still 29.6 billion dollars. You can kind of see that the revenue is not taking as big of a hit. Um, but let's look at on holdings. All right, so this is on holdings revenue, $2.8 billion. So you're like, I'm looking at this as the company that is supposed to like take over Nike, right? And just, yes, they've taken market share. I'm not denying that they haven't taken market share, but to like what extent, right? Like $2.8 billion to Nike's, I'll just call it 30 billion. Not even close. Let's go to Decker. Hoka growth is $2.2 billion. I mean, what are we even talking about here at this point? What are we even talking about here at this point? Nike's Converse business is nearly like their business is barely as big as Nike's Converse business. Converse business is a joke, by the way. I don't know why Nike even still has this business. They need to just sell this business off, help their multiples, and just help their it would just help their business dramatically. They need to stop wasting time on this Converse brand. I'm hoping over the next 12 months they've come to a realization that they need to just let go of Converse. There were some buyers that showed interest in Converse, but I don't know what their plans are. They absolutely need to get rid of this brand. But not even close. You could see the scale. So let's see over the next 3 to 5 years, let's see how these numbers look. Right? That's what I want to know. Obviously, the growth is going to be 20, 30%. Like you're talking about, look at the scale, right? Nike, they're not going to be growing 30% in the footwear industry when they have $30 billion in revenue. That's just not going to happen, right? Now they have seen growth in the running, I guess, footwear. They saw like 20% growth in that category of running shoes, which is really good. But look, at the end of the day, I'm not really concerned. I think the CEO is doing the right things, getting them on track. Previous earnings report showed really good signs of them getting back on track. China growth is still the big opportunity. But look, Nike is one of the most hated stocks in the market right now. And in due time, as long as they show that they are continuing to get this turnaround, um, people are going to look past all the numbers and eventually start to catch on that Nike is really turning it around. Margins are starting to get back to normal, and growth is starting to kind of stabilize and not look as bad as it has been for the past year or two. So that's kind of like what I'm seeing with Nike and why I'm not really concerned. But let me know in the comments if you think different. If you think Nike's just dead money over the next year or two, I could be completely wrong. Um, and I'm fine with that. But let me know if you're buying Nike, holding Nike, or if you're just staying far away from it. And I'll see you in the next video.